Metanomics is brought to you by Remedy Communications and Dusan Writers Metaverse.
So, Kevin, I've spent some time over the last few weeks reading some of your newest legal writings, which are forthcoming in Harvard Journal of Law and Technology, Journal of Telecommunications and Higher Technology Law, University of California Davis Law Review, and best of all, of course, the Cornell Law Review. I know you're doing a lot more than writing papers, but I think you raise some really interesting issues, and I think going through some of these topics will provide some great background for understanding your other activities. One of the key threads running through all of these papers is that the U.S. doesn't have a national policy guiding internet regulation, and clearly you would like to see one. So I guess before we talk about possible solutions and legal issues, let's just talk about the substantive problems. In your paper, Beyond Universal Service in the Digital Age, which is, that's in Telecommunications and High Technology Law Journal, you say that broadband penetration is already a yardstick for competitiveness among nations, and that we aren't doing so well. So what concerns you about the state of U.S. broadband connectivity?
Well, so first let me just make two general comments. One is, as you said, these are some of my legal scholarship as a professor. Not necessarily a view that's representative of the Obama administration or the FCC. So I wear different hats, and most of these are things that I wrote prior to serving on the transition team or afterwards. And the other comment is again timing wise, the comments about the U.S. not having an internet policy or broadband policy were predominantly in 2008. Referring to the time before the Obama administration came into office. So in terms of that, I don't think it requires a lot of justification to say that broadband is something important in terms of global competitiveness. It's something that not just President Obama, but the leaders of countries Europe and Asia frequently talk about in terms of highlighting their countries' ability to compete and educate its citizens and create jobs and innovate in the digital age that we live in. All of those things require good connectivity. And again, it's not a particularly novel story. I think it's fairly well established that the United States was a real leader in the growth of the internet in the 1990s. But then when it comes to the broadband internet, you can get much faster connectivity much more cheaply in most of the developed world than you can in the U.S. And also, even beyond just the facts on the ground, the Bush administration just didn't seem to care that much. It rarely talked about the internet and broadband. It didn't have very many high-level people who were focused on those issues. It just seemed to think that this was something that they could just let go and it would just happen. And that's, I think, really not the way to look at this critical piece of national infrastructure. This critical resource for the information platform of the 21st century. So I think if you look at what the Obama administration has said, again, going back to during the campaign, President Obama made quite clear that this is important to him, that he understands the value of technology in so many ways, and he's put into place a tremendous team across different parts of the federal government to really drive forward technology and broadband in particular as a platform for many of the major initiatives of the administration.
Okay, you make a distinction between what you call the floor and the ceiling of connectivity. So what do you mean by those two terms, and which of those should we be caring about from a regulatory perspective?
Well, in that particular paper you're referring to, I was addressing the issue of what's called universal service, and universal service is a policy that we've had for a long time in the United States that initially meant everyone should have the ability to affordably access the telephone network. and it was originally about telephone service, but obviously, today people think about how that might apply to internet connectivity and broadband, because that's the access to the global information network the same way as the telephone was 30 or 50 or 100 years ago. And so the question that I was looking at in this paper is how do we evolve our universal service policies to promote universal broadband? The system that we have in place for universal service is outmoded, it's broken, it has all sorts of inefficient cross subsidies that really don't go to either fundamentally providing what they should in terms of affordable telephone service, but certainly don't get us to where we need to be on broadband. And again, this is not a novel idea. This is something that's broadly recognized within both the academy and industry. So the question is, what should we do about broadband? And the distinction that I was making, that you referred to, is in thinking about what universal broadband means. There are two dimensions. One is, what's the baseline that everyone should have? Broadband is a fundamental element of citizenship, I think, in the 21st century. To get access to government services, to get access to news and information, to get access to educational materials and healthcare and so forth, you're at a disadvantage if you don't have access to some level of broadband connectivity today, and that'll increasingly be true. So the first question is, what does it take? Just what's the table stakes? What level of connectivity? What speed? What level of pervasiveness? And what other equipment and training and so forth does it take to be a basic participant in information age digital polity, if you will? The ceiling says what's the level of connectivity that should be widely available. So that'll be something much faster. In Japan, pretty much everyone, at least in the major cities, in Tokyo, can get access to fiber optic based broadband that's typically 50 or 100 megabits per second. Whereas in the United States, hardly anyone has access to that level of speed, and most so-called broadband, even in big cities, is a couple of megabits per second. So the ceiling idea is what aspirationally should policy push for, with the recognition that it may not be feasible or cost effective to give everyone, in all rural areas and so forth, that level of connectivity right away. But policymakers should think in terms of those two levels. That was the argument I was making in that paper. So
yes, it sounds a little bit like some of the things I'm hearing with the healthcare debate. That we want to make sure everyone gets some level of healthcare. Not everyone we can't necessarily afford to provide everyone with the absolute best in all cases, just because of the cost. You make another distinction when you talk about universal service. You talk about ubiquitous access versus unitary access. So what's the difference?
Well, those are my terms, again, that I used in that paper. Again, this is thinking about what does universal service really mean. And I think when you unpack it, one thing it means is ubiquity, i.e. everyone should have access to broadband. And that's usually what gets talked about. But a further dimension is everyone should have access to the same network. We take it for granted that everyone accesses the same internet, when that's not necessarily the case. So the point there was just that government should ensure that the kind of broadband that people have access to is part of an interconnected network of networks. That it's not something that becomes narrow and proprietary, where people can't benefit from network effects and the ability to access the same applications and content and so forth.